Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Real and the Rare. My name is Scott Morgan, Rock the Motor City Madmouth, here along with my co-host, Xavier McKnight, a.k.a. the X-Man. How you doing, Xavier?
Doing well, Scott. How are you on this evening?
I'm doing great. Getting ready to go to the West Coast, and that is to Arizona. Now, you're giving me a little bit of a daylight savings time lesson.
Yes, and I'll say it again at the end of the show for everyone. Remember, on tomorrow evening to move your clocks forward 1 hour. I know we would love to set our clocks back again, but unfortunately we have to wait a number of months for that again. It is that time of year again where we have to move our clocks forward on tomorrow evening. Daylight savings is officially on Sunday, but of course we normally move our clocks forward on Saturday. So the negative part of that is we will all lose an hour of sleep. The positive is there will be more daylight towards the evening hours.
I don't ever lose an hour of sleep. I lose hours of sleep, man. I got sleep apnea. I have insomnia. So what's the difference of a daylight savings time, daylight nonsense time? Who cares? You know what I mean? Just another reason for me to take a drive up the ocean or in the mountains. But I don't know. What about you? You like to drive?
Yes, I do. It's finally now starting to grow on me. It wasn't there about a year ago, but, the more that I get to travel, the more experiences I get to have, the more I'm actually embracing driving and just the peacefulness that it brings me as well.
Oh, yeah. Meditation 101, Xavier. It's good stuff. You live in a state where there's a lot of water. So, all right, well, let's talk about the impending free agency of Tom Brady. Is this really going to happen? Is he leaving New England?
Well, it's definitely looking like it. And, I didn't really want to discuss this in the past few months because rumors are floating out there. And, rumors are rumors. And you never believe something's going to happen until you actually see it happen. With that being said, this has not officially happened yet. But the first real indication that this is a possibility came down earlier this week when the Boston Herald released an article saying that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick finally had a conversation on the phone, and it reportedly did not go well. Adam Schefter of ESPN, he came out within the next hour, and he immediately refuted that report, obviously because that's something that no one wanted to get out. But I have no reason to sit here and believe that the Boston Herald said anything that was false or they misconstrued anything. Bill Belichick wanted to move off Tom Brady 2 to 3 years ago. I mean, he had the crown jewel in his mind of Jimmy Garoppolo's there. Brady went to Robert Kraft and went higher above Bill Belichick, and Robert Kraft forced him to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo, now quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, 27 years old, just led them to a Super Bowl, fell a few possessions shy of being able to hoist his first Vince Lombardi trophy as a starting quarterback in the NFL, and the 49ers' 6th overall championship, which would have tied them with the Patriots and the Steelers for the most in NFL history for a franchise. But, it's interesting that we bring up the 49ers here because news broke a little earlier this week, Scott, that there is some form of mutual interest there between the 49ers and between Tom Brady. And another story also came out saying that Kyle Shanahan, the head coach of the 49ers, is slightly intrigued by all of this. Before I go any further with it, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, right now I think with Belichick and Brady you have a clash of egos. And I think that one of these two wants to see who can win it without the other. That's what I think. And right now, I think Belichick figures he can cement his legacy. Not that 6 Super Bowls isn't enough as it is, but can he do it with another quarterback? The question is, Xavier, who will that quarterback be? And I think that if the best quarterback that I would like to see in New England if Tom Brady isn't there is Andy Dalton.
Yes, that's the name that is surely floating around a lot, and I believe he would be great for their system. But, I mean, it is an ego thing. It's an ego thing between both guys there. But with that being said, I'm slightly siding with Tom Brady here on all of this so far because I don't blame Tom Brady for wanting to get his money. I don't care if he's not the same quarterback that he was 5 to 6 years ago. Tom Brady has been taking pay cuts from the Patriots organization for years, so they can continue to keep an elevated amount of talent around him to remain in the Super Bowl conversation year after year after year. Well, this year, everything just came to a head. And, you talk about a definition of London's bridge is falling down. The Patriots were awful on offense this year. They did not have those weapons that Brady is used to. And even if Julian Edelman does come back next year, he's getting older. And he's well into heading towards his 35th birthday now. He's 33 now, but he's on the wrong side of 30, especially when we talk about NFL players and wide receivers, and the injuries are piling up. And some of the news that's been out there about him in recent years with the PED use and the alleged arrest that happened earlier in January for reportedly and allegedly jumping and stomping on someone's car. I mean, it's not all positive things out there about that. And one of the names I thought that would be of interest to go to the New England Patriots should Brady return would have been Amari Cooper. Well, Amari Cooper came out yesterday and he said that he wants to be a Dallas Cowboy for life. So I believe they're going to find a way to make that work with him, and I believe they're eventually going to get Dak Prescott under contract, whether it's a 1-year deal, a 2-year deal, or he does give them a hometown discount, so they can keep that combo, or rather that trio of Amari, Dak, and Zeke together for years to come.
Yeah, I don't
but
see...
with that...
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't see, like you alluded to earlier, I don't see Tom Brady giving anybody a hometown discount. He's done it for a long time, and he knows it's his last contract, and I think he should go out there and get it wherever he can get it. Where I think the fit is anybody's guess at this particular point.
And, the 49ers, they make a lot of sense. That's Tom Brady. That was his favorite team growing up. He idolized Joe Montana. He grew up in that area of California. It just doesn't make sense to me from the standpoint of the San Francisco 49ers. I understand that Jimmy Garoppolo and people are going to judge him based off the postseason that he had. Some are even going to judge him based off some of the regular season numbers that he had. They weren't all flash and pizzazz. But, Scott, I want to remind everyone of one thing. Jimmy Garoppolo was 1 year removed from a torn ACL injury. Unless your name's Adrian Peterson, it usually takes you a full year to, get back in the groove of things, and then it's the second year after the injury where you go back to being what you were before. And Jimmy Garoppolo was a winning quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers before. It was a small sample size of games, but he looked good out there. And don't forget those games that he started for the Patriots in the 2016 season when Tom Brady had to miss the first 4 games because of suspension. He looked good during those games, too. So I don't expect the San Francisco 49ers to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. I believe he's only going to continue to get better. But if they were to do so for a 43-year-old Tom Brady, that's obviously a win-now move, of course, but it just doesn't make the most sense to me. What are your thoughts on Brady and the 49ers and how that fit would possibly work?
I mean, they can be intrigued all they want. I don't see it happening. I mean, to me, Jimmy Garoppolo, because of the nature of his injury, looked more like a game manager this year. So will his impact be greater, with a year after playing a year on it? I think so. But Tom Brady, the 49ers, just because you idolize a team doesn't mean you're going to go back there. I remember many years ago, before you were born, Joe Namath was a fraction of himself when he went to the Los Angeles Rams, I believe. And it's too bad they got him on the downside. Now I think there's no question Tom Brady has been a lot healthier. He obviously has a Super Bowl rings to prove it. So I don't know if you can really totally compare them, except for both quarterbacks are Hall of Famers, and that's where the similarities end, outside of a Super Bowl versus 6. So I don't know whether this is another power play with Brady trying to get the best of Belichick via Robert Kraft. So I think it'll be interesting to see where Robert Kraft ultimately steps up and says, I want Tom back, and whether Belichick is willing to go along with it. I don't know. For some reason, I think that Brady would like to take on a challenge somewhere else. Where that challenge, to me, is really anybody's guess. I don't see it with the Chargers at all. I don't see it with Tampa, so I find that the options can be very, very, very limited. I'm struggling with the idea with the Raiders. I'm struggling everywhere with Tom Brady, to be honest with you.
Well, here's what I will say. You know, you brought up the Joe Namath comparison. I'm going to give you another comparison, and you tell me if this makes the most sense. I see Tom Brady at this point now on the back nine of his career where Brett Favre was at the back nine of his career. And I say that because wherever Tom Brady plays next year, whether it's New England, whether it's somewhere else, I believe we'll get one more Tom Brady-like year, and then I believe the year following that it's just all going to completely go downhill from there. Because Father Time is undefeated. We've already seen shades of Father Time in Tom Brady's game, especially through the past 2 seasons. This season alone was almost was unrecognizable at times out there on the field. But I do believe he does have some game left, and if he goes on to take on a new challenge, I believe he'll go on to have a great season as long as he's able to stay healthy, and he's going to give it everything he's got. But in that second year, which would be age 45, which, by the way, it should be noted, that is the year that Tom Brady has been saying for years that he said, I want to play until I'm 45. Well, that's the year I believe it just all completely goes downhill. And it just is what it is. We don't like to remember our icons that way, but it's almost inevitable for something like that to happen, and especially with the way that the game is going as well. Now, you say the Chargers don't necessarily make a lot of sense to you. I'll tell you why they make the most sense to me, and it's more than just football here. I'm looking at the geographical standpoint because if I'm just looking from football fits, the 2 fits that make the most sense to me, Scott, are Tennessee and Indianapolis. But I don't see Tom Brady going to a stadium in a city where Peyton Manning has a statue outside of the stadium, and for so many years, almost 15 years rather, there was this huge rivalry between he and Peyton Manning and the Colts and the Patriots. And then when Peyton ultimately moved on to Denver and the Broncos and the Patriots for those few years, all those AFC championship games they played in, I don't see that happening, even though I believe Frank Reich would be a great coach for Tom Brady to work with. He would have good weapons to work with in Indianapolis and a better defense, in my opinion, to also work with on the front 7, because the Indianapolis Colts there with Darius Leonard and him leading that front 7. They have some good players in the secondary as well, and also be on the watch for them to possibly be in the mix for Jadeveon Clowney, but that's a story for another day.
Right.
Tennessee makes the most sense to me because I believe they actually have better weapons than the Colts do. Corey Davis does not get a lot of credit for the receiver that he possibly has the potential of being. Well, you know, Ryan Tannehill was a nice story this year, but I don't think Ryan Tannehill comes back and is a franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans next year. And I really like Tajay Sharp. I like them in the possibility of them getting Delaney Walker back if they choose to bring him back. He's a top 10 tight end in the game when he's healthy. But, of course, the one that makes the most sense out of all of them is the Mike Vrabel and Tom Brady pairing with each other. It should be noted, Scott, that when Tom Brady was at the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury fight a couple of weeks ago, Tom Brady and Julian Edelman were on FaceTime reportedly with Mike Vrabel. Not trying to speculate that there's something going on right there, but that is something that should be paid attention to. Those are the 2 football fits that make the most sense to me. Now, why I say this is bigger than football is because you best to believe that Giselle, his wife, is going to have a say in all of this. Shall they move on from New England? One, I believe Giselle's number one option for Tom Brady at this point would be to retire. That's what I really believe her number one option would be. But we know that Tom Brady is not going to retire. We know that he's going to continue to play football at least for the next season or 2. So if she has a say in all of this, there's no way she's going to rule Indianapolis and rule Nashville. Also, before we continue to move on, I just want to send my best thoughts and hopes and prayers to everyone in Nashville right now at this time as well. Horrible tornadoes that went through that city earlier this week. At least 25 people were killed. They're still reportedly looking for more people who are missing. Just wishing them all the best, hoping that they're able to rebound and get back on their feet. Just wanted to go ahead and put that out there since we did bring up the Tennessee Titans in the city of Nashville.
All right, let me give you my take on a few things. I never believed that Indianapolis was a destination for Brady because you got to remember it was the Colts that went ahead and blew the horn on the Patriots, so I can't imagine that ever materializing. It didn't matter whether New England traded Jacoby Brissett over to the Colts. Nobody cared about that move. But for Brady to go there in the stadium that indeed Manning built, I agree. That's item number one. Item number two, I want to make sure that we don't forget that Joe Montana did not finish his career with the 49ers. He ended up with the Kansas City Chiefs, had some success there, but certainly didn't duplicate that success in Missouri as he did in California, since you're bringing up the Brett Favre comparison. Number three, Tennessee, yeah, it does make a little bit more sense. Ryan Tannehill, once upon a time, played for the Miami Dolphins, and he couldn't stay on his feet. Got a fresh start in Tennessee, but it didn't hurt to have Derrick Henry as his running back, so he didn't have to drop back and get hammered. He had a workhorse in his backfield. So I think you're right. Of all the places that I could see him relocating, it would definitely be in Tennessee. And don't forget the fact that there is no state income tax there as well, I don't believe. And I also have family members in the greater Nashville area. My sister-in-law, Denise, my brother-in-law, Tracy, and my niece, Emily, are there. And thankfully, in the Mount Juliet area, that they are doing okay. So, again, I do want to express my utmost concern and prayers to those folks in Middle Tennessee and throughout the region as well. I can only hope that you guys can go ahead and get back in some sort of normalcy, but I know they have a little bit of a road ahead of them. So, but yeah, Tennessee to me would be the most likely possibility.
And before I continue, very glad to hear that everyone is okay there on your end. Also, I have a few friends and relatives there as well. I reached out to them immediately as I heard about those storms, and they are doing just fine as well. Just once again, we send our best hopes, our thoughts, our prayers to, and most positive energies that we have to everyone there at this time. Now, let me get back to the Tom Brady relocation and destination thing that actually makes the most sense to me. You said the Chargers don't make a lot of sense to you. I'm going to tell you why they make the most sense to me. The only thing that doesn't make sense to me there, and why that possibly would not happen, is the Dean Spanos factor, and that is a huge factor to consider. But I just look at the Chargers as a whole. They have a good group of running backs. They have a great group of wide receivers. The Chargers' biggest issues last year were injuries, and the fact that Phillip Rivers was just over the hill at that point. But the biggest issue was injuries. Let's not forget about the fact that in 2018, the Los Angeles Chargers were 12-4. And ultimately, they went to New England, and they just got shellacked in the playoffs. But I believe, and, they made a quiet move this week that I believe everybody should pay attention to. They swapped offensive linemen with the Carolina Panthers, swapping out Russell Okung for Trey Turner. Trey Turner, one of the best guards in football today, trying to shore up that offensive line. Now, I know they gave up a good left tackle as well, but this is an NFL draft coming up that is going to be very rich with good tackles, and I can see the Chargers going out and drafting one of those tackles to come in. So I believe that's a move to also watch out for that they made this week. I believe Anthony Lynn would be a good coach for Tom Brady as well. He's unproven, but I believe in Anthony Lynn. As I said, the only thing that doesn't make sense to me there would probably be the Dean Spanos factor, and that could be the deciding factor. It very well could be. But to me, the Chargers make the most sense. Tampa just doesn't make the most sense to me just from the standpoint of, how long is Bruce Arians going to be there? That doesn't make the most sense to me. But, with that being said, Brady's only going to be there a minimum amount of time, too. He would have great weapons to throw the football to. But, Scott, I have huge questions about Tampa Bay's offensive line. That is something that concerns me. Tom Brady is coming off of a year where he had some of the worst offensive line play of his career, so he's definitely not going to fall into a trap with that. And, if you take the Chargers out of the equation, I'm not exactly so sure that I even like the Raiders that much, because it would be entertaining, no doubt about it, and it would be must-see TV. Tom Brady is quarterback of the newly Las Vegas Raiders, relocating from Oakland now to Las Vegas, being coached by John Gruden. It would truly be a spectacle and must-see TV. And I can only imagine that CBS would take that AFC package, and we would see the Raiders almost in every single 4 o'clock, 4:30 Eastern time game every single week next season, or if not most of the weeks, with Tony Romo and Jim Nantz making all the calls for those games. So, it would be entertaining, but I don't believe the Raiders are as close to winning right now as everybody else does. And I really just feel like they should continue to give Derek Carr a shot to continue to develop and become even better. It should be noted that just a few years ago, had he not gone down with a broken leg, Derek Carr may have been the NFL MVP. That should be noted. But the Vegas Raiders fit, like I said, from an entertainment standpoint, it would be great. From a football standpoint, I don't see it. The Chargers and the Titans are the only two fits that make the most sense to me there.
Yeah, I don't see the Raiders. I mean, John Gruden seems to be, when it comes to quarterbacks, he has happy feet. He had 9 million quarterbacks in Tampa. And you know what? He only won a Super Bowl title because Tony Dungy handed it to him on a silver platter. So tell me that John Gruden, it deserves the opportunity to even work with Tom Brady. No way. I'm sorry. I mean, he'll sell tickets wherever he goes, but he will get banged up and he'll wish he took his other half's advice and retired. He really will. Now, maybe here's a little one that I could throw out there out of the middle of nowhere. I think Brady would make more sense with the Chicago Bears and maybe the Minnesota Vikings. Whether or not that would ever happen, because the Vikings have Cousins, is another story. But the Chicago Bears can use a quarterback. I think they could. And he certainly can play in the cold weather, and nobody even talks about the Bears. What about, and I don't see him going to Washington, because even though Ron Rivera is there, I still think that's a dysfunctional mess. What do you think of those possibilities?
Well, I like the Minnesota possibility actually a little more than the Bears possibility. I like it because of the pairing with he and a coach like Matt Nagy, who is very dynamic and one of the best offensive minds in the game of football. The weapons he would have around him, they would be good. But I like the weapons in Minnesota even more, and I like the defense in Minnesota as a whole even more as well. And I also like Minnesota more just simply due to the fact that even though Minnesota is a frigid, tundra-like environment, well, when it comes to NFL football, it's not, because they play inside of a stadium that is almost a dome, basically.
Right. So
Brady wouldn't be freezing his tail off unless he's walking around outside. That's the only way that would happen. But I like both of those fits as well. Minnesota definitely makes a lot of sense. And, you talk about Thielen and Diggs and Kyle Rudolph and Brady and Dalvin Cook. And, that would be really nice. That would be a really nice pairing. But I don't see them moving off of the Kirk Cousins contract right now. And, unfortunately, that's going to be something that I believe that ultimately dooms them as well. But that would be a nice fit. It does make sense. I want to throw another team out there to you that we had heard about for the past few weeks. I definitely believe this is highly, highly unlikely, and that would be the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not even sure where those reports even came from. It would be good, once again, from an entertainment standpoint. It would be great for TV ratings. It would be great for the city of Dallas. They would pack that stadium every single week out, no question about it. But I believe they need to continue to move forward with Dak Prescott and continuing to develop him as one of the better young quarterbacks in the game, and not focusing on a 43-year-old Tom Brady. But when it comes to Jerry Jones, anything is possible. So it's not something I would necessarily count out, but I do not believe that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think when you talk about Minnesota, the right word to describe that, Xavier, would be salivating. Because you are in a dome and you have a lot of weapons, that's for sure, and a halfway decent running game. So, but again, whether you're still looking at the final year of Kirk Cousins' contract, and that's about it. I mean, I just don't know where he would go. That's the thing. I couldn't see Denver following in Peyton Manning's footsteps there. They're not close to winning. Again, this guy's trying to win a championship without Bill Belichick. And meanwhile, Bill Belichick is trying to win one without Brady. It's the game called What Gives. Okay, will it be me, you, or none of the above? Remember when Shaquille O'Neal thought he could win championships without Kobe, and Kobe did it without Shaquille? Well, as it turns out, Kobe won? What did he win? 5, and then I think O'Neal 4. So Kobe kind of got the best out of that one, and who knows how many more titles those guys could have won if they were together. But that'll be for another day. But again, it's about ego is really, really what it is. And when it's all said and done, do these two come to their senses and figure, what, we've looked at other possibilities. It's probably better that we just kind of stick it out and try to figure it out.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on that. Now, listen, I'm going to throw this team out there. They're not as a possibility. They're not as a destination, but I'm throwing them out there. I'm just going to put it like this. If they weren't such a dysfunctional mess, the Cleveland Browns, with all the weapons they have, would make a lot of sense. But because they're such a dysfunctional mess, we're not even going to entertain that happening because we know it's not going to happen. But you talk about sticking it to Belichick. If they weren't such a dysfunctional mess with those weapons that he would have to throw to, but it's not going to happen, so we're not even going to entertain it.
Well, so let me ask you a question. How good do you really think those weapons are with the Browns? I think Odell Beckham to me is a bunch of hype. I'm really not so sure Jarvis Landry is that great anyhow. I mean, you got guys with a lot of name recognition, but how good really are they? I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, they would be a lot better than the weapons that he had in New England last year for sure. I believe they're somewhere within the top 8 as far as weapons go in the NFL. The one that stands out the most to me is not even a wide receiver. It's Nick Chubb, the running back, and after him, it's David Njoku, because one thing we know about Tom Brady, he plays very well when he has a good tight end as well. We know that for a fact. But like I said, if the Browns were not such a dysfunctional mess, maybe we would be including them in this conversation. But because they are, we're just going to leave that alone. We're not even going to entertain the thought of that. But that's just something I wanted to throw your way for a second just to see how you thought about that.
Well, I think exactly what you think. It's a dysfunctional mess. I think it would make more sense for them to go to the Miami Dolphins than a lot of the places we've talked about, even though they're not ready to probably turn the corner yet. You still have the Brian Flores factor, and Brian Flores, the Miami Dolphins got a bunch of picks. This team could get better very quickly, and I don't know. I'd like to think that Tom Brady's a bigger upgrade than Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, look at all these picks the Dolphins have. You mean, if they get some of those picks right, they could contend pretty quickly and turn it around. Everybody thought they were good for dead, and they thought they were going to go 0-16. All they did was win 5 games, and they started playing better in the latter part of the year. Tom Brady and the Miami Dolphins being able to stick it to Belichick twice a year with New England on the potential downside. You know that the New England Patriots are eventually going to go downhill at some point, just like, in the NBA, San Antonio's run will probably come to an end at some point. But we'll stay on the NFL for a moment. So, I don't know. I think the Miami Dolphins makes more sense to me than the Cleveland Browns. Brian Flores.
I agree with you on that, and you brought up the San Antonio Spurs for a second. I'm not going to harp on it too long. You said that their run will come to an end at some point. Scott, that day is officially here. The San Antonio Spurs will more than likely not make the NBA playoffs this year, and that's going to be very strange to see.
Yeah.
It just is, because we've seen them in the playoffs every year since the 97-98 season. So, it's going to be something to get used to. But, we'll just have to see what that organization is planning to do going forward. I'll also mention the fact that Tim Duncan he was the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs for one game this week, the first game of his career being a head coach, and he actually won the game. So I believe there's a situation that could be brewing there between who's going to be the next Spurs coach, when we thought Becky Hammon was the shoe-in, and now it's Tim Duncan who actually gets to coach the team when Popovich is away on personal business. So that's an interesting situation developing there. But let's move back to the NFL topics really quickly.
Sure.
You brought this up earlier, and I'm just going to say this.
Okay.
We're throwing teams out there, but the only pick that truly makes the most sense to me is for Tom Brady to stay in New England.
Right.
That's truly it for me. Like, I believe they can get the weapons stack correct. I don't believe Robert Kraft will have an issue paying him the money that he wants. But it's just that battle of the egos right now, and I believe that's what's ultimately going to split this union up, and it will be the end of the greatest dynasty that the NFL has ever seen.
I don't know. Do you think it really is the greatest dynasty that the NFL's ever seen?
From a standpoint of, just what the records tell us, I'm going to say yes. Now, we do understand that there is a bit of tainting right there.
Right.
We understand that. And I do take that into account. But I'm just speaking from a statistical and a record standpoint. I believe you do have to give it to them right now. I thought that eventually no one was going to be able to replace what the San Francisco 49ers did throughout the 1980s and the 1990s.
Right.
I believe the Patriots have surpassed that just simply because they have one more Super Bowl championship trophy in their showcase than the 49ers do. But it's going to be the end of an era, and it's going to be something to get used to. And, just like the San Antonio Spurs, and, you and I have had these conversations before, eventually all things must come to an end.
Well,
eventually all teams have that period where they have to go through rebuilding once again.
Yeah, I'm dealing with that in Detroit with the Detroit Red Wings. 25 straight playoff appearances, 4 Stanley Cups, not a bad body of work in 2.5 decades, let alone all the games that they ended up winning. So, yeah, it's hard when it happens. It's painful, but great organizations rebound, and then they start all over, and they ultimately get it. Some franchises never get it. So it's interesting, but I don't know. Statistically speaking, they got 6 championships, where some of them won cleanly. Well, we're not going to get into a cheating broadcast here, but let's not lose sight of the fact that some of it did occur. No doubting it, but I'm not putting an asterisk next to any of their championships at all. I won't go that far. But I think the key word here is egos. And then the thing that you have to understand is, are the New England Patriots going to be drafting their franchise quarterback in this particular draft? We don't even know anything about that yet. We'll know that in a matter of weeks. And then we'll really have a much better direction whether Tom Brady will be there one year, if he goes back, and he's actually mentoring his successor. I mean, those are just things that we kind of have to throw out there, even though all of this is premature speculation, and whether or not he's even in Boston in the first place. So
I just believe everything has been somewhat telling and alarming since we learned last year that he had put his home up for sale in that area. And I know that there are some people out there who go, well, he could have just been moving into a new home, and I don't dismiss that. But with everything that's been coming out in the past few years, with the animosity at times between he and Belichick about certain things, especially the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, New England makes the most sense to me, but I don't believe he'll be returning there. And I believe his career will end the way that Brett Favre's did. I honestly do believe that. I don't bring up the Joe Montana factor because I was not alive when Joe Montana was playing on the Kansas City Chiefs, and I understand that they were able to get it to at least one AFC championship game, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, they were. Again, though,
Okay.
when you talk about great quarterbacks that leave, trying to finish somewhere else, name me one or two off the top of your head that actually made it to the mountaintop when they left their original spot.
I can't do that because it has not happened.
Right.
Like you said, it has not happened. And Joe Namath, I mean, I believe he's the saddest case of them all.
Oh yeah.
I mean that was just depressing. And as you said, I was not alive when that happened, but I've seen the tape, and it was awful.
Well, I agree. I mean, so it's I don't know. I think when you talk about Brett Favre's situation, he went to New York Jets for 1 year, and then he ended up going over to Minnesota later on, and and he got banged up quite a bit. But there's a guy, for me, who will always be one of my favorite quarterbacks because of his durability and that record-breaking streak. I mean, how do you not love Brett Favre? Let me tell you, all great coaches get into battles with their quarterbacks on the sideline. Don't tell me that Don Shula had a great relationship with Bob Greasy, because, again, there's certain opinions how they think they should be. You have the coach versus the field general on the field. But they work it out. But it's just a matter of, I'm on the field, you're over there. I get it. We're both knowledgeable. You know what I mean? But ultimately, the great relationships stand the test of time. No one's going to sit here and tell me that Terry Bradshaw and Chuck Noll had the most cushy relationship yet. I know that's before your time as well. But, those things happen. So where there's a clash of egos, but the quarterback's the one who throws the touchdown passes. The coach does not. He's the one that rallies you in the last couple of minutes. The coach may call the shots, but the quarterbacks do audible at the line of scrimmage if they see something else. So it's a matter of who's playing, who's coaching. And in the end, both of them have wins and losses connected to their record.
Yes, I definitely agree with you on all of that. And, I do believe that from a Bill Belichick standpoint, there are just certain players who you have to give some form of preferential treatment to. Tom Brady would be one of them. Everyone loves to bring up the Matt Castle and the few games that Jimmy Garoppolo played. Scott, I'm going to go back to when Bill Belichick first went to the New England Patriots. He had a 12-goal quarterback in Drew Bledsoe, and he had a 5-11 record. So it's not a given that you're just going to be able to get just anyone in that system.
Right.
Drew Bledsoe was an actual good quarterback. The only reason Tom Brady even saw the field was because of Drew Bledsoe getting injured against the New York Jets in the 2001 season.
Right.
I mean, Drew Bledsoe was a good quarterback. I want everyone to understand that Tom Brady did not come in and replace some scrub. That's not what happened. So it's not a given that you can just come in and win with everyone.
Right. Well, I agree. Totally. No debate there. Tom Brady was a beneficiary of an injury. Once he got the job, he never lost it. So, more power to him. And when Brady went down, I think it was Bledsoe that won the championship game that ultimately got him to the Super Bowl 1 year, I think it was. So Bledsoe played a part in that Super Bowl. So, you're talking about positions of leadership is what you're talking about. And I think the whole gist of the show that we have, and I know that we've covered a lot of ground in the broadcast, is where Tom Brady is going to go. And the question is, I don't think even Tom Brady knows where he's going to go. It's a matter of egos. I don't care whether conversations become viral on social media or where you're going in Las Vegas where your talk is talk. None of that means anything. Some of that actually might end up turning out to be just simple posturing. Just that mind game, the chess game amongst who's going to do what. So I think,
Scott, there's one other thing. There's one other thing that would probably make Tampa a little more intriguing to him. I don't believe they're a true destination for him. But it's one thing to think about. He get Bruce Arians as his head coach. Bruce Arians is a great offensive mind. He has great weapons to throw to, a growing defense. I have concerns about the offensive line. But the Super Bowl just so happens to also be in Tampa next season. And we've never seen a team in NFL history host the Super Bowl in their home stadium. Minnesota came close a few years ago before losing in the NFC Championship game to the Philadelphia Eagles. but we've never seen a team actually do that. And knowing Tom Brady and how he feels about challenges, that's something I believe he would be looking to look at and take on. But once again, I'm not of the belief that Tampa is a destination for him.
Well, I don't think Tampa has the pieces around to do it. I really don't. And Bruce Arians, you said it yourself. How long is he going to be in Tampa? I mean, maybe 1 or 2 years if that's all Tom Brady's got left anyway, so who knows. But I don't know. I don't see the fit with the Buccaneers. I really don't. But, I'll give you this. Okay, no team has ever hosted a Super Bowl, so Tampa would be the next team that could possibly try to do it. Do they have enough pieces to do it? I'm not holding my breath there. But
no, I agree with you on that. I don't believe they have enough pieces for it. And as I said, my biggest concern when it comes to Tampa is that offensive line and how shaky they are. That would be a huge concern.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, but hey, it's good food for thought. Good to think about it. But I guess my question is, now that you're mentioning where Tom Brady's going to go, and I'm not trying to get off subject, where do you think Jameis Winston would go if he were to leave? Because after all, you're talking about Tom Brady going to Tampa, so let's talk about a guy that threw a lot of touchdowns and a lot of interceptions. He was probably good for fantasy people, but he certainly was a nightmare for everyone else.
Well, it should be noted that reports are starting to come out that the Buccaneers and Jameis Winston are actually expected to part ways.
Okay.
I'm not exactly so sure that he is a starting quarterback in the league to begin next year. I don't see that. You have a class of rookie quarterbacks who are coming out. They're said to be a good class of quarterbacks. And I say it like that because we never know what these guys are going to turn into until we actually see them get out there on the field and produce. Well, I'm hearing that Chicago could possibly be a destination for him. I used to believe that Denver would be one, and you brought up Denver as a place that no one's talking about that could be a spot for Brady, but we know probably won't be a spot for Brady, especially with the Peyton Manning factor there. It's not even just that. I believe the Denver Broncos are fully honed in now on doing everything they can to fast forward the progress of Drew Lock, because he shows a lot of potential to possibly be a franchise quarterback for them.
And now I hear this talking.
I don't even see I don't see a destination right now for Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
Not as a starter.
And now I've heard talk about Marcus Mariota probably going to the Raiders. Now now I could see that. You never know. I mean, a good 1B as they call it. Is it 1B means you don't have a real good 1A, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what Steve Spurrier did many years ago when he was with the Washington Redskins, where he brought every Florida quarterback to the nation's capital. Didn't win with any of them, but that's for another day. But I'll tell you what, this is a very interesting conversation, to say the least. And yet I still don't have an answer for it.
And neither do I. We're all just going to have to just sit back and watch this whole thing play out. That's the best way we can put this now at this point, because, like I said, New England is the destination that ultimately makes the most sense to me. If the Chargers didn't have questionable ownership, no doubt about it, they would be the favorite over them for me. But the Dean Spanos factor is something to consider there.
Well, I mean, here, let me throw another one out that just popped into my mind, okay? I wonder if the Rams, who love all that star power or whatever, consider taking a shot at Brady for 1 or 2 years since they have that new stadium. And Goff is under contract. I don't see them get rid of him, but why not throw their hat in the ring and see what happens?
Well, I believe he would definitely be intrigued by that, especially being able to go to an offensive mind like Sean McVay and some of the weapons that he would be surrounded around. Now, Ty Gurley, his future on that team, I believe that's very much in the air. I don't believe Ty Gurley will be the starting running back for the Rams next year, and if he is, he won't be playing nearly as many snaps as we're used to him playing. But it is something to consider, as you said. But because of Jared Goff and his contract, I'm just not even going to take that as a serious destination for him. But it is something to consider. And the Rams have made flashy moves over the past few years,
right,
especially since moving back to Los Angeles. So it is something to consider. And their owner absolutely loves to make a splash.
right.
So you're right, it is something to consider. But with Jared Goff's contract, I just don't see it happening.
Well, I only threw that out there because we've only thrown third of the league out there, and all I can tell you is I've seen crazier things happen. Why not this? That's all. I mean, again.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course. But you know that Minnesota fit. I mean, that's one that honestly does make sense.
Well, yeah.
And you don't understand why teams probably wouldn't pull the trigger on something like that because they're still focused on Kirk Cousins. But Tom Brady, his best shot to probably win another Super Bowl elsewhere would probably honestly be to go to the Minnesota Vikings.
Right.
That's how I feel about that.
And you talked about the Indianapolis Colts. I'll just throw a little curveball at you. If any quarterback that I think could potentially go there, I can only visualize that maybe Nick Foles would be reunited with Frank Reich, but that'll be for another day. I think that since Reich was the guy pretty much calling the shots anyhow, I could see Foles going there, but I don't see the Jacksonville Jaguars would have enough guts to bring in Brady anyhow, with another Gruden as an offensive coordinator, but this time Jay Gruden. So, but just a little thought out there, right? And we'll let our listeners ponder some of these ideas, and they're welcome to contact us through our social media accounts, which in about a moment we're going to go ahead and give them to, aren't we? Go ahead.
Yes, of course. And once again, before we do that, I would like to once again remind everyone, move your clocks forward 1 hour on tomorrow evening. I know that for most of us, we don't like to necessarily lose that extra hour of sleep or that extra hour of time that we get, but it is that time of the year again, and just look at it like this. The sun will go down now even later on in the evening. So I just wanted to throw that reminder out there to everyone, as I promised I would do at the beginning of the show.
Well, now I'm wondering, do I really need that reminder for Arizona since they don't change time? Or do I just go ahead and just change it to what their time is and be done with it?
For you, I believe you would just change it to what their time is and just be done with it.
There you go. Yeah, I know. I used to live in Arizona before, so, yeah, they don't change. But I don't know. And let alone the fact that we got a spring training game that we're going to actually that we bought tickets for the Cubs and the Diamondbacks. Not going to cover it. Need to take a break once in a while and just sit in the stands and relax instead of being under pressure. But with that said, okay, why don't we go into the social media and we'll let you lead off.
Yes, you can find us on Twitter at the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. Scott, excuse me, I don't have the pages in front of me really quickly. If you could read off our social media names for our listeners very quickly.
Sure. On Twitter, you can find us at Tribune South, the @ at Tribune South. We also, on the South Florida Tribune, www.southfloridatribune.com, we actually have a podcast section, and you'll be able to find the real and the rare in that section as well. You can also like us on Facebook at South Florida Tribune, and you can also give them your contact information on Twitter, Xavier McKnight.
Yes, and on Twitter you all can follow me at XTMCKNIGH and the letters II. Those are two capitalized I. Once again, that is XTMCKNIGHII. On Facebook, you can simply just type in Xavier McKnight. And on Instagram, you can find me at MCKNIGH22.
And I actually have an Instagram account as well. That's South Florida Tribune. But one of the things I heavily use for a lot of you folks that want to know about social media, if you're into the business side, LinkedIn is gold. I'll tell you what we've been able to accomplish on LinkedIn, to me, here at our network as well as the online publication, is unreal. That's how the Sports Exchange has really gotten off the ground. The South Florida Tribune podcast is going to get rolling when we return from Arizona. So, it's important to be able to maximize your social media and be able to determine which ones are really, really, really effective. And the one thing about you and I, Xavier, we try to keep it real and rare, but more importantly, the subjects are not just limited to sports. They're pretty much we go ahead inside and outside of the sports world. We try to be different because we believe that versatility is the key, and we want to make sure that our listeners have the opportunity to hear a lot of different things, because our goal is to make sure that you learn something with everything we bring to the table. Any closing thoughts, Xavier McKnight?
Well, once again, I'd like to send my thoughts and prayers to everyone in Nashville, and I'd also just like to send the best of positive energies to us as a whole, as a country, and as a world right now. We know that the coronavirus has completely just taken over different sections of the world. It has now become a global illness, and I'd just like to encourage everyone to continue to sanitize the best way you can, stay clean. Please don't touch your eyes, nose, and your face if you can avoid it, and more importantly than anything, please make sure that you are washing your hands.
Yeah, I want to add one thing that we talked about during pre-production. I like the opportunity that we're talking about the NFL because, to be honest with you, I don't think there's a sport out there that really has my interest outside of motorsports. I love hockey, don't get me wrong, but the NBA lately has not done an awful lot with me. College basketball really doesn't do a lot for me. Are there any other sports that you're tuning out at the moment?
Well, the MLB training camp, I'm just ready for the regular season to start at this point.
And you know what? I'm looking forward to my next major project, the Sebring International Raceway, where we're going to have the 1,000 miles of Sebring and the 12 hours of Sebring. That's a great event that's held in the state of Florida. It's actually been going on for, I believe, I think it's 60 plus years. So a great event for you auto racing enthusiasts. I think it's something that once you go to an event like this, then it's something that, you get hooked. They have like 14 different manufacturers, and they have 19 different countries represented, and I feel like there's like that interesting Olympic feeling that you have when you're dealing with all kinds of technology. So I love motorsports. I know we don't talk about it a lot, but perhaps down the road, maybe we will open it up a little bit to motorsports, because you know what? To me, you want to talk about danger and entertainment. Motorsports certainly does it, and Sebring has actually been voted the number one track in North America by USA Today. So we're definitely looking forward to covering it, and I'll be out there 3 days, beginning from March 18th to the 21st, and do some spring training. But Sebring is something that I really live for. Hopefully one day you and I, Xavier, can have an opportunity to experience that event. And we actually had a special last night on the Sports Exchange talking about Sebring, and I spoke with Ken Breslauer, who's a media director and a track historian, and tell you what, do a little bit of homework on Sebring, folks, and you'll find that it's one fine event that takes place here during the spring. So any closing thoughts, Xavier McKnight?
No, just once again sending out the best of positive energies to everyone as we go through these adverse times right now. Always remember that tough times do not last, but tough people do.
Yeah, and once again, I echo your thoughts. With the coronavirus, everybody, please try to be safe. I know it's hard when you have a lot of people, crowded areas, but you still have to try to at least be conscious of it. And yeah, once again, to our friends out in Tennessee, keep the faith. Things will get themselves worked out. So on behalf of myself, Scott Morgan-Roth, the Motor City Madmouth, this is
the X Factor, Xavier McKnight.
And we look forward to another edition of The Real and the Rare. Everybody, once again, have yourself a great weekend, and we look forward to bring you another edition of The Real and the Rare. Look for previews, and when you see it on there, please retweet it and share it with everybody. Download, subscribe. We're looking to keep you in the loop at all times about developments and subjects that you're most interested in. Please send us feedback about what you'd like us to talk about in there. We'll be more than happy to do that. Right, Xavier?
Of course.
All right, everybody, have a good night and a weekend.
All right.
Good night.
All right, and good night, everyone.